Welcome to Brand Lab. It's nice to see you all here. Oh, we're going to say all, it's Mike and Nugget. So,
Oh, chicken might wander in, you never
oh,
know.
chicken might wander in. Anyway, so obviously people are very busy this weekend with it being half term. But I'm just going to quickly move on really to the presentation that I put together today, which is something I've done a while ago, which is all about brand architecture. And I don't know, Mike, in your world, whether you talk about these sort of things, but it's the sort of more complex end of what we do as branding experts. And basically, it means organizing people's products and services so they make more sense to the audience. And it's something that I've probably done throughout my career, and it's probably leads to some of the biggest projects that I've been involved in because they're normally these things that have just got really complicated to deliver. Someone's just turned up. Just say hello to them. Hi, Viv. I think you're going to be listening along. So welcome to this week's Brand Lab. We're just doing a general introduction, and I know you're driving, so don't worry about talking. You can rewatch all of this, and I'm sure that'll be the safest way to get through an episode of Brand Lab. So I'm just going to share my screen briefly, because we record all this and send it on to me. So welcome to Brand Lab. I really believe that branding can be overly complicated, so I try and demystify it, and that's really my aim, is to help business owners sort of get the most out of what they already know about their business and their brand, so they can actually carry on delivering it for themselves. And I've sort of been doing that for big businesses all my life in terms of branding, and now I'm sort of finding new ways of getting that to people as well by kind of doing some more coaching techniques or training and teaching and that sort of thing. So what I'm going to talk today is about brand architecture, which I'm starting at the most complicated bit of branding. And the reason I'm doing that is because, I'm launching a course, and I know that some people, there's always people signed up for it, some people are thinking about it. But when I talk to people, it seems to be the number one thing that they want to try and sort out with their brand is how they organize their products and services so they make more sense. And I can sort of sense that because this isn't spoken a lot in design world, because it is the sort of more complex end, that maybe people need more support. So I just thought I'd crack straight into the sort of the advanced branding. And Mike, if you want to jump in at any point, please do. But I'll crack on. So this presentation: indie rock, jazz greats, punk pop, modern classics. It's going to take you just through the basic principles of what brand architecture is all about. But to do that, you have to think about brand first. So those that have been in my brand meetings before, my definition of a brand is all about the emotional connection you create with the products and services. Most people know that I wear Adidas. I don't wear Nike because I don't do running. I do hang out and listen to New Order a lot, so I wear Adidas trainers. And once you've made that decision, that kind of that emotional connection, you believe that you've bought the brand for the right reason. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a phone, newspaper, coffee, it could be anything, a product or service that you might be selling. So you've got to get that bit right. So I have a model, the brand donuts. Mike, who's here, has a model called the ice cream model. And not that we all kind of name things after sweet things. Some people have pyramids, some people have a brand triangle, but the donut, which is this idea of if you can sort all these things out, vision, position, offer, values, mission, tell the right story, glue it all together, why it really matters, then you have a really strong brand. Now, what I'm going to do here is just focus in on a little bit of that brand model. And the reason for doing this is that when you're doing brand architecture, you do need what we call a strong master brand, the parent brand, the key brand that is in your business. And if you've ever been on any LinkedIn type things about stuff to do with branding, you might come across Simon Sinek, and he talks all about the why and the purpose. And that's the bit of the brand model to really focus in on brand architecture. So yes, all the vision and stuff and position is, but it's the what, what is it you're going to offer? What are these products and services? How are they different? What's your unique approach? And what's your overall purpose of a business? And I'm going to explain that to you in the next sort of 15 minutes. So getting onto so you've got to define the brand. If you haven't got a defined brand, it's really hard to then sort out the products and services. So this presentation sort of came around probably during looking at that picture of me there, the height of lockdown. And I was talking to brand directors about brand architecture. What is brand architecture? Well, it's the link between your strategy and how you communicate that to your audience, which is technically spot on, really. And the brand director might say, okay, well, thanks very much. And then they'd probably go, hey, are they records that you've got behind you? Well, that's really cool. And I'd go, well, yes, they are. And then all of a sudden they go, wow, I love music. I used to have a load of vinyl, but my mum threw them all away. Love David Bowie, early years mainly, but Black Star was great. And so you get into this like long, convoluted conversation about what's on the wall behind me, rather than what I was talking about in terms of brand architecture. Lana Del Rey's pretty good these days. Janelle Monáe worked with Prince. I think that you can hear his influence in her latest album, and indeed you can if you listen to Janelle Monáe. So I thought actually let's try and answer the question about what brand architecture is in a slightly different way. So thinking about my records behind me. So what is the offer? What are the products and services that I'm selling, which I'm not selling, by the way, not probably for a long time, but it's just a collection of records, but it's sort of split into more than that. So there's 7-inch singles, 3,176, 12-inch singles, about 9,020, and LPs. It's probably more like 1,782 now. But it's a collection of records that are split into these sort of broad categories. And that's my offer to anyone here. So that's the first bit of our little target. The how, well, what's the differentiation? What's the unique thing about it? And for me, my record's all about the personal curation. I bought records since I was 10 years old. You'll see Adam and the Answer up there. And one of the first records I bought, and it sort of kind of changed my life, blew me away in terms of how great I thought it was. And I just always really, really enjoyed it. And so that sort of 10 years worth makes it very personal to me. It's my personal curation through this world of records. And I'm just going to let someone else into the room. And just do this. I think Mona's coming. Hi, Mona. Hi, Mona. Thanks for joining us. I'm just partway through a presentation about brand architecture, which I'm going to go back to. So, and you may have seen some of this before, but I'm sure you'll pick it up anyway. Let me just deal with the technology. Stop share. This is where I need some sort of image technologist supporting me. Right, do you know anyone who's good with imagery and stuff? Right. So back to share.
Someone who can do all the back end work for you, really, don't you?
Yeah, do all the technical stuff. So we're just saying what it is. Offer is big collection of records, 7, 12-inch and LPs. Why is it unique? Because it's my personal curation. It's things that I've bought through my life since I was 10 years old. So why does it really matter? So what's the big difference? What's the purpose behind it? Well, for me, it is about the emotional connection of listening to the music. And I want to do it now. I want to listen to stuff now, but I want to listen to it in the future. I do have this vision of me sitting in this room like this Max LT, TDK or whatever ad from the 80s, of actually just sitting there and listening to my music, because it's the thing that I really, really enjoy. So I've got a sort of like kind of, little mini sort of, what, why, how type thing. So the offer, what is it? It's the record collection. Why is it unique? Is because of the personal curation, and the purpose is actually it's for now and forever, really. And that's really how I kind of define my brand in terms of my record collection. And then it comes on to the next bit of brand architecture. So it's all very well, but now you've got to start organizing things. And so once you've got that defined brand, my record collection, you need to think about what it is that you're selling, or what are those products that you've got. So in one way, I could just organize these into 12-inch records and 7-inch records. Yeah. And that's sort of a very kind of simple organization strategy. But actually, there's quite a lot of stuff in there. There's pop, there's hardcore, probably some garage, there's some avant-garde, there's opera, there's indie, there's 80s. Now, if I sort of went through and listed all the record genres that I've got, it would actually become quite confusing quite quickly. So I've actually focused down. And if anyone ever, when people have been in this room, just like HMV used to have, there are little tags that actually separate divide up the categories. So I've actually rationalized my collection into these categories, because I know that I've got mainly pop, indie rock, ska, new wave, new romantic, 80s, oldies, funk, etc. So I've organized it 7 inches and 12 inches by the shelf height. That's quite easy. And then I've rationalized it through the different categories that I've come up with. So that makes it a lot easier for me to think, well, is this an indie 80s album or is this a 70s kind of disco record? And it just makes my life a lot easier to find exactly what I need. So what happens next is then you need to clarify them. So let me just a very, very uncool record just pulled out. So everything has like a color tag on it, has a little color tag, a little stamp, and then it has the name of the artist, the year that it was released, and all the details that you need at a glance. And so a record like this, which is in a what we call a universal bag, it doesn't tell you much information. It's all on the label, but it's really easy for me to find things because they're all actually got little labels on. So you've got to clarify it. So it's all very well rationalizing and organizing it. You need a clarification system so that other people can get around it. So there's some of the principles behind it. So get the basic structure of your offer sorted. So make it organized and clear. Rationalize it for your audience. And remember, really, the records here, I am the audience. I am actually the main audience. But someone, if I told you that Blue was post-punk and you were looking for a Clash single, you'd probably know where to go in my record. You go into the Blue section, post-punk, new wave, 7-inch, A to Z, and you'd find it at the far end on the right. So, and that's the sort of the principle behind sorting out your brand architecture. And this is really relevant for all branding things. And because once you've sorted that out, this is like a technical bit, once you've linked your business strategy and your brand strategy, you can reach all your audiences with different products, and it can work for anything that you bring out once you've actually got it all sorted. So as I start adding to my collection, if I started buying, I have got some 10-inch singles, but I don't really put those as a separate category because I've only got half a dozen. If I suddenly got really into 10-inch singles, I might have as a complete new category. I've got some old Shellac 78s, but I don't listen to them. I've not catalogued them. They're in a pile in the corner. I've got a wind-up gramophone that works with them, but I don't really care about them. But if I got really obsessed with it, it'd become a new part of the thing. But I've got a system that I can work with it. So once you've sorted out your architecture, then you need to think about the design. Now, when we talk about brand architecture in design language, a lot of it is people like jump on monolithic. FedEx is the classic example of the monolithic brand. Everything is basically the same. It's FedEx, it's got little divisional titles below the X. Endorse something like Virgin, very classic, Virgin Megastores, Virgin Brides, Virgin Coke. A master brand that's so strong, you can stick it on almost anything and people recognize it and love it and the association. Or you go into the territory of what we call branded. So businesses like Unilever, Procter and Gamble, those big sort of companies that own lots of different brands that are all brands in their own unique right, but they don't really care. Unilever don't care as long as you're buying a Unilever product off the shelf, whichever one it is, because they're all kind of slightly different, but also competing with each other. But they've kind of created these mini brands within those big brands. And they're the sort of three models that typically people use. Monolithic have been the same. Endorse, so strong you can just stick it on anything, but didn't really work with Virgin Brides, let's be honest. And then branded, where everything's got their own brand. Now, there's strengths and weaknesses. Monolithic's really easy to do because you're just repeating things, but there's no standout. Everything looks the same. Whereas branded, you've got to create mini brands for everything that you're bringing out. So it's really expensive to do and deliver. And endorse is fine, but if people don't buy into that master brand, you can really sort of, and actually I think if you go too far off track from what the core is, even I think if Branson's brand is all about kind of experiences or that sort of thing for music, you could probably get away with trains and flights into outer space, but Coke and getting married probably aren't the right thing. So the other way of thinking about it is it's kind of what's happening more and more, and actually since I did this presentation, Facebook have gone down this way. You create a hybrid, so you want a little bit of everything. So obviously Google, their Google product was so strong as a brand that even though it was the corporate master brand, they had to create something above it so that Google could have its own life, YouTube could have its own life, and actually Alphabet becomes that master parent brand. Now Facebook have done that with Meta, and probably they I don't think they'll row back on it, but even since I did this presentation, you can see the problems that they're having with people are still associating everything that they do with Facebook And the thing is that Meta isn't really a believable enough brand for everyone, because everyone go, we don't think the metaverse is going to be good. In fact, it's going to be rubbish. Whereas Alphabet and Google, Alphabet makes really good sense, A to Z, Google words, letters. It's just like, yeah, whatever, it's your corporate entity. We've still got our Google, we've still got our YouTube, and that would be much more successful. Facebook might have to change that again, probably in a few years. Happy to help. Another hybrid example is probably Amazon, obviously very well known for the online retailer, but they've taken a slightly different approach to some of their other brands. So if you think about the stuff they brought out in their Alexa world, that's all quite monolithic in terms of Echo Dot, the Echo Plus. It just follows a very simple pattern. Whereas actually, if you think about some of the other things that they own, like IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, they've retained their own unique brand personality because they were quite well established. Now, what you would want to see is, I don't think you'd ever see a world where Amazon brand everything with their smiley face on it. I don't think they'd ever go that far. But Virgin did that, so why can't Amazon? Well, I think the reason that Amazon probably can't is because they are so diverse in the things that they are bringing out, again, which is why when Virgin went too far, it didn't really work as well. So it allows them to still reach different audiences with different products and services, but in a way that's meaningful. And because they've thought it through a little bit, then it makes more sense to people on an ongoing basis. So back to my collection. So indie rock, jazz greats, punk pop, modern classical. What can we learn by looking through my record collection about brand architecture, with specifically how it will influence design? So thinking back to monolithic, if you're going for a monolithic approach, just don't mess with stuff. Oasis, meat and potatoes of rock music, had the same photographer and the same logo up until after the single, after All Around the World, and from then on they went a bit sideways. They literally lost the plot. Now they did bring the logo back later on, but by that point they'd just gone too far away from what was their template. And I guarantee if they'd just stayed with the same photographer and the same logo, they'd still be making the same great rock records, and the brothers would be touring the world and be multi-billionaires by now. But don't forget about the longevity of things. You've got to stick with it. If you start getting bored of it, maybe your clients will get bored of it, but you've got to keep it. Actually, you've got to keep sticking with it, otherwise you'll confuse people. Next point is the personality. So think about that sort of middle bit where we've got the Virgin records, and this will get confusing as an example, but endorse stuff. As long as you've got a style that actually unifies everything, you can do what you want. Blue Note Records. If you've got a Blue Note Records badge, like the Virgin badge, on any record that's designed in the Blue Note styles, you're going to get something cool. That the music's going to be jazz. That you're going to check it out, and it doesn't matter. All of these different colors, different fonts, different imagery, but they've all got a visual style because they've had a curated art director type approach to it. And that's kind of a really smart thing to do, to keep your brand fresh as you're starting to bring out a range of different products and services. So that personality point is really important. And then the final thing is that, if you have gone down the branded approach and you've got such a strong master brand, and I think Virgin is a better example of a strong master brand. It started out, I think actually it's the 50th anniversary of Tubular Bells this week, their first album. Their first, they signed the Sex Pistols, got banned by the BBC. Human League #1 with, Don't You Want Me? That was their first #1, 1981. I've written something yesterday about how actually #2 was Cliff Richard with a song called Daddy's Home. Can't remember it. I suspect it's terrible, which was actually released on EMI Records, which is now a subsidiary of part of Universal Music Group, which have owned Virgin. So they're all in the same business now anyway. But there you go. And my most valuable record is also on Virgin Records, and Mona will be very pleased to see that. So George Michael Symphonica. I haven't got it off my shelf because it's just so expensive. If I drop it, not really. It's about five it might be £800 now, actually, that record. But you see, they can just do what they want with the artists and whoever they've got, because they've got Virgin brand on it. So I just want to leave you one thing about, excuse me, flexibility in design is important. So Deutsche Grammophon, who are a German record label, they've got this real classic way of doing all their everyday titles. It's just this very kind of clear yellow block. It's very sort of in that monolithic way. But when Jarvis Cocker released his album with Chili Gonzalez, Room 29, you should check it out. It's very good. He wanted a bit of that Deutsche Grammophon kind of kudos, and he released it on theirs. But they actually slightly tweaked the design, so his name is bigger and the Deutsche Grammophon is smaller. But it's sort of buying into it. So again, you can do this hybrid type thing with it. So there you go. They're the principles of brand architecture, and I just wanted to share that with you. Anyone who's here today, I'll email you the design tips. But have the strong master brand. Make sure you organize, rationalize, clarify everything, and then find the right approach for you. That's a little 101 in brand architecture. So let's go back to the main room and see if there's any questions on the floor.
When did you implement your filing system? How far into the collection before you had to go back and do
That's a good point. I think I don't think I started doing it until about 10 or 12 years ago, but in the last 10 or 12 years ago, I've probably quadrupled the amount of records I've bought. I stopped buying records in 1994 and didn't start again until 2010. So there was a 16-year gap, really. So
Wow.
not a lot happened. And then when I moved here, I had these shelves built and other shelves built in other rooms. It was time to actually put them on the shelves in the right order so you could find it. And also, as you know, because of DJ, actually being able to find them when someone says, "Oh, we've got a punk night," well, I just go to my blue tab up there,
Yeah.
bang. If I want my ska, well, that's a bit further up. If I want my new romantic stuff, it's over there. If I want my indie rock, it's a bit tougher because there's most of it. So yeah, that's how I do it. Does brand architecture impact you in what you do you think?
I think so. I think it probably in one level affects everybody, because if anything, if what it does, if it forces you to actually think about what the products / services are that you sell, then I think that's the most important thing. Because the reason why, so my colleagues came up with the ice cream model was simply a way for us, first and foremost, to rationalize what we did. And the benefit of it actually was that it also helped us to communicate what we did. So something that started as a personal kind of way of understanding and a way for us to have conversations, but then evolved very quickly into, right, well, actually, this is a product that we can sell people.
Yeah.
And then even just breaking down into the individual types, the different components of the ice cream model. It very much helped us to understand what we've been doing, and then as a way of communicating it.
And what about for your clients?
I think it's helped them, because a lot of the time it was always, oh, I need a video and it's got to be an animated video. And the conversations were always form first.
Yeah.
And they were very hung up on it. It's got to look like this, and it's got to look like this. It's got to fit in with all this now branding and whatnot. But it was less about what is the purpose of it.
Yeah.
And by understanding for us what the purpose of the video should be, it also helps us to understand actually one video that we make for you isn't going to solve everything, unless you've got a very clear idea for what that video is supposed to do and you've got other things in place. One video really should just be part of a lot of other things you're doing.
Yeah.
So even in that respect, it's allowed us to understand, right, well, how do we upsell? How do we offer more value than just the one singular product that we're producing?
I think that's a really good point, is that if you have got multiple, or you've got a single product you can sell in different ways, you need to make it clearer what version you're selling of that product.
Yes.
With it being feeling different but being the same, and all those things that you then need to do, and including messaging as well as the visual side of it, to actually create that distinction. And I guess, if you just take even taking records as an example, if I've got my new order records there, I have different versions of the same album, and I know which is the premium one and which is the standard one and which is the all those different things about it. And a lot of that is around just simple signposting to say this is the do-it-yourself version, or this is the do-it-with-you type thing. So as I say, brand architecture is definitely something that when I'm talking to people, they ask me more questions about. And my course that I've just launched will actually, it's the last bit that we do in the course, really, to help people understand it. Although I might be bringing it forward because people have been saying, I really need help with our products and services. So excuse me, I might introduce the concept of it earlier on so you can see how everything fits together later. So there you go. That was all about brand architecture. So got any questions? Just help drop in. But I was going to talk a bit about some brand news. I always do
Of
a
course, yeah.
section on this bit, and let me just change my technology again. This was just something that I'd sort of maybe I get into like a little theme, but I'd sort of I don't know if you saw Kanye West last week
Oh, the
making
older White Lives Matter.
yeah, making an idiot of himself. I'm not going to put the White Lives Matter T-shirt up. I think the chap is obviously trying to court controversy, which is fine. But I did think that the subject around publicities and T-shirts as sort of a political message and how they're coming back in fashion was worth just sort of considering. Maybe if everyone in the room can tell me their favourite publicity T-shirt, but just thinking back to Catherine Hamnett, and this was the 80s, sort of protesting about nuclear disarmament and stuff like that. And it was I mean, I remember at the time, and Mona will be very familiar with these sort of things. But just the sort of there you go. There's George again, second appearance today.
Mm-hmm.
Choose life was such a sort of a great sort of statement, and that is still going through. And what even in the Financial Times, they were sort of saying that the strength of political statements and T-shirts are really, really powerful. And I just wondered if you had any sort of opinion on that before I move on to the last little section today. Do you
Well, it's if you've got a platform, you've got to use it, right?
yeah,
You've got to use it appropriately. And something like, I mean, there was a whole AOC thing a couple of years ago, wasn't it? The whole tax the rich dress
yeah,
that she wore at the Met Gala,
hmm yeah,
which, depending on what you feel about politicians, is one thing or another. But I think it's a very subtle way a very subtle but also powerful way of using your platform, because your words can only be heard if they're recorded or someone's there to write them down or going to read them. But we're all very image visual creatures. That if you're wearing a statement on a T-shirt and you're going to be photographed in a high profile place with a high profile individual,
do you think a
nice self.
political T-shirt is a stronger statement than throwing soup at a work of art,
I think as a
or
means,
super gluing yourself to the suspension bridge?
I think if you are raising awareness of the issue, I've been if you're dealing with narcissists will always attack the means that you are trying to have a conversation. If they can't argue with what your message is, they'll argue with the way in which you put it forward.
Yeah,
And the danger of this system is people will argue with the way in which you put your message forward
mm,
before they even try and engage with you
yeah,
and take the losing battle of trying to win you over with
yeah.
ideas.
I
So I
think
think
that's the point, isn't it? That, like, say, Hamlet sort of talking about nuclear disarmament with Margaret. I mean, in the sketch, Thatcher didn't know she had the statement, so she just opened the coat and showed a statement. That's not like super gluing herself to Margaret Thatcher. And
well, imagine that.
yeah, imagine that. But I do think that you're right in that the message gets lost if the stunt is too kind of too far out there. And I think that's what they're sort of saying, that people are becoming more politically active, and maybe you'll see more political sort of statements. And we have done. I mean, we don't like to mention Brexit in polite circumstances, but there was lots of T-shirts around at Brexit, and there's an increasing kind of retro kind of thinking, I think, about how 80s statement T-shirts are now can be repurposed for
Mm.
modern audiences, and that's all very, very cool.
I think
No,
if we're willing to let our bodies be billboards for brands with logos and
yeah,
corporate identities on them, then why
yeah,
can't we also use
yeah.
them to display our ideas and our
Yeah.
beliefs?
I always find, and this is where I sound like a bit of an old git, but I always find it a bit odd when I see people wearing like Nirvana t-shirts, sort of, when they're only sort of 15 years old, and and but I think it's also fine as well that they can start to enjoy that and relive it, and but there are certain Nirvana t-shirts that you shouldn't be wearing under the age of 18. But let's talk about that.
If it raises awareness, I mean, if it's a band you like, you either take it personally. It's like you
Yeah,
weren't there, but then at
you
the
were
same
there,
time, I didn't get into Nirvana till I was 18, and
right?
Kurt was sadly long gone before that point.
No, well, I do have the first UK pressing of Nirvana, never mind up there, with the printing error where it's printed upside down, which, whilst it being an error, makes it more valuable, which is kind of
Absolutely.
weird. Make a mistake. And then that brings us on to the last bit of today, which is band news. And actually following on from what we were just talking about, one of my all-time favourite bands back to the 80s, sorry it wasn't Wham, Mona, but it was Frankie Goes to Hollywood. And they just sort of one of the best really at this sort of stuff. And Frankie Says Relax. In fact, actually, when I looked at this earlier, it was like David Schwimmer, I think, or someone like that from Friends or something like that, wearing the Frankie Says Relax t-shirt, probably not really knowing the sort of culturally significant impact of that record, which, like the Sex Pistols, was banned by the BBC. Actually, I don't know who owns Zangton Sun, probably Virgin Records these days, but I really remember getting slightly obsessed with the ZTT as a record label. And I picked out this today rather than Relax, Two Tribes, and I just thought, just because we're talking about slightly more political things really, and this is 12-inch of Two Tribes. It's the Annihilation mix. And what was particularly, I think if you haven't listened to it for a while, listen to it. We play it on our Vinyl Friday nights, and it's quite a big song, I would say.
It's huge, it's massive, yeah.
And you know, the sound and everything, the production, and that's when I really got into after the Human League, when I really got into music and remixes and of buying 7 versions of the same song, and just the sort of the infographics that they used to put on the back, and the Paul Morley written messaging and stuff that really didn't communicate anything but said loads, and it was really quite exciting. So that's my recommendation this week. It's Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Two Tribes, Annihilation mix. That's the crucial bit rather than the Carnage version, which isn't probably quite as good. So there you go. Thank you very much for everyone this week. You've got, as always, you've got any questions about branding, throw them at me. You got any questions about branding, Mike? We can talk about
I've
asked questions.
Yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed the musical angle on this. I'm DJing myself on Saturday, so it's nice to get a bit of inspiration.
Where are you DJing on Saturday?
It's a Rusty Bucket in Eltham. It's their Halloween party.
Oh, we're doing our Halloween party we're doing what ours is called Haunted House Party.
Nice.
Obviously, so we'll do like an hour or so of like, we are going to play Michael Jackson, Thriller. Don't care if people.
I think you have to.
Yeah, we'll play an hour of that and Ghostbusters and stuff. And
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters. What about?
I'm gonna forget that. Leave that one out.
Have you not got Zombie by what's he called? Jamie T. Zombie.
No, I've got a few.
I've got loads, but we're only going to do an hour or so, and then we're just into house music.
I've got to do 4.5.
4.5 songs. Excellent.
Choose them wisely.
Yeah. All right. And so, well, thank you for attending. If you're in Greenwich on Friday night, then yeah, the Vinyl Fridays Haunted House Party is happening. If you're in Elton on Saturday, go to Mike's Haunted House Party with less records by the sounds of it, just probably better records. So thank you for everyone. Thanks for being able to listen along. You'll see a video of this sent as a link. Thanks, Mona. Good that you said it when there was. Thanks, Viv. That there was 2 references to George Michael.
Yeah, great.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks everyone, and
Well done,
have a
Nigel.
great week. I'll see you next month. It's the 29th is the next one. Probably
Nigel,
oh,
can I
yes,
just
hello?
say, I have got a Relax t-shirt.
Oh, that's even cooler. You see, Frank, you know, Viv says relax. That's all we need to know. You should get it out and wear it. I'm not saying this Halloween because that makes it sound rude, doesn't it? But
yeah. I'm sorry, but it wouldn't fit me now, Nigel.
Oh, well, none of mine do either. So anyway, but anyway, I'm glad to know you've still got it there. It's probably like some sort of antique, actually. So it's probably worth £7.84 now. So hold on to it. Excellent. All right. Thanks everyone. Have a great
Cheers.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.